Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network. KingofPodcasts.com.
CMAs are gone. Soul Train Awards are gone. BET Awards are gone. But the VMAs, they're still here. And it's this weekend.
The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Welcome to episode 402 of the Broadcasters Podcast. King of Podcasts here with you for another episode. And it's one of those random episodes that I always do. If you've heard this show for any length of time, you know I talk about the VMAs quite a bit. I first started talking about this when I had one of my podcasting series, because it was just that right spot to be. But there's a relevance this year and a significant effort now that CBS or Paramount or Skydance now have control of the MTV Video Music Awards. Now, of course, MTV, they have not been the same as it was. You know, we know that very clearly. No music television. That is no longer the identity of the network. It hasn't been like that for well over 20 years. TR was the last moments where we still felt that was still there. And there have been times where they add a little bit of videos here and there. But of course, YouTube, technology, streaming have changed everything. But that doesn't mean that MTV, much like radio, could not find a new identity for themselves in this technological age. This change, this digital disruption I constantly talk about. It doesn't mean they cannot stay relevant. And there's a reason why they have survived past the CMAs, past BET, and past Soul Train. Meanwhile, there might be certain entities that own those properties that decided not to go and continue it. The American Music Awards came back, and it was a fiasco last year. It was horrible. Really out of touch. But meanwhile, the MTV brand, call it what you will, it still holds up somewhat today. And I think what they're doing with the VMAs this Sunday, it's going to hold up okay. I'm actually kind of surprised and very thankful and thrilled that they're actually going to be able to keep this in a certain way somewhat relevant and finding a way themselves, because they've been able to kind of revolutionize themselves. They've been trying to at least try to keep moving in a direction where they are looking to try to hold on to their nostalgia. Obviously, we have, fans like myself that grew up on MTV from the very beginning. And MTV, I still think, in some way, shape, or form, if it were a music video channel or if it was the bastion of music in general, of what would be in the mainstream, it would still be important today. But of course, there's no money to be made in it. When I've been listening to certain people talk about where MTV was, that people would go ahead and flip from other channels to watch music videos on MTV. But that doesn't mean that people would go ahead and stay to watch music videos for long times of retention, only to then go to a commercial break. And once the commercial break happened, they would just dip. And that's understood. The short attention span really destroyed any chance of MTV continuing to be that way. But I still think there's something to be said about where MTV, this was the place to go for the music videos, to see the stars. It doesn't mean you couldn't still do something like this now. But I mean, even MTV, in the last 20 years, by having True Life or Teen Mom or The Challenge or Jersey Shore, by completely just going reality shows and ridiculousness and completely alienating anything that has to do with music and having it being pushed off to the other channels was, at that time, I guess you had to go and do that kind of thing, because once something's not relevant anymore, you want to still keep that brand still around. So MTV Classic still remains. And MTV2 and other MTV channels that are around as well that cater to different areas, whether it's the hip hop area for jams, or it's for the rock, or if it's for the Spanish crowd with Trace. It's all those kind of things. But we already know that right now, MTV, in the same realm that they have multiple channels on cable, those could be consolidated right now. Take those channels away and put everything back into the main property of MTV itself. And just put that content in there and make it the hodgepodge it was, as a place for music, as a haven, and where taste making and trend setting could be made, where you see the stars of music on, and you find a way to use social media to go and take that advantage. And maybe you can find some stars or some people that are kind of influencers, much like in the MTV days. You found people that were more or less influencers. The early influencers came from there. You could do something with that now, but they don't. But they could. The thing is, it's always a change of trying to keep up with the times. Yeah, you're not going to do spring break anymore. You're not going to do various events they would do. But like you could go to concerts. You could do the social media and go out there and catch what's going on. And the brand could have been embedded into other things, maybe into radio, maybe into streaming, maybe into podcasting. Other things could have happened. But the resources were never made to be put there. And that's because where MTV is at right now, in that current realm, Paramount, they were more worried about other things. All their cable channels have suffered. Nickelodeon has greatly suffered. Comedy Central has greatly suffered. There's certain programming that goes on these channels that we all grew up as kids that identify what those channels are. And so for MTV, it's ridiculousness. And, now I forget the other shows. Love and Hip Hop, because they moved that over from VH1 to MTV. Other than that, that's like the identities of that network. For Nickelodeon, I don't even know what it is anymore. And as for Comedy Central, it's South Park and other shows that they picked up from other entities as well to fill up the lineup. But it doesn't mean music television couldn't have been put together. And the thing was, there have been other channels that tried and failed. And, Vivo was trying to go ahead and fill that kind of void, and that hasn't really panned out. I don't even know if it even exists anymore. I couldn't tell you. But all those areas of music, we don't have one place where we can go to catch up on the music, because in other markets, might be their state-run media that does it. BBC is very big about covering everything when it comes to music. They might not have Top of the Pops anymore, but they still have music programming. They still have things where they cover Eurovision, especially their radio programming. BBC Radio 1 is a bastion of music, popular music in the mainstream of various genres. They do a great job of programming to cater to everybody in their market and a younger demographic as well. And they have competition on the private route. This could still happen here, but a big corporate entity, I would hope that Skydance could see the value of MTV as a property and be able to use that more. Because MTV doesn't need to be about the channel. It could just be what represents an identity. Like MTV is iconic as Playboy. It's iconic as Coca-Cola. I just think that people know what MTV is and what you mean by that. And for someone like me, I have various memories of MTV, what that is. The VJs, the spring breaks, the award shows, the VMAs, all of it. Like, there was a lot of things to remember. Yo MTV Raps, or Headbangers Ball, or 120 Minutes. Like, there was so much. It covered everything. And the idea was, you have to remember that MTV used to be able to generate sales. When you talk about, there was music that would have music videos of artists from other countries. Okay, especially from the UK. Another British invasion was as a result of the fact that American artists were not really big into music videos. It didn't really catch on. It caught on more into Europe. And that's why a lot of artists that we saw in the early 80s, moving on before we got on, that caught on, where Madonna and Michael Jackson and Prince and others caught on to the bug of music videos and realized how important that was. But before they got into the play, Duran Duran, Culture Club, those are the artists that we saw first and foremost. The Police, they were the ones we saw. And we caught on to them. And they were smart to go ahead and take advantage of MTV, because what you didn't realize was the bump that it also gave for the kind of record sales that were able to be made in other markets. Like, so it wasn't even have to be where it was in New York or LA. You could be in small town America. And if you have the cable channel MTV, you caught these songs in heavy rotation and you went and bought the records. And the bump wasn't from radio. It was from video airplay on MTV. And we had the ratings. We would know how many people were actually watching the programming over there. At least a sample of it. And I bring all this together because I feel like there is a relevance that can still be made to MTV today. It's not a brand that I think has gotten completely old yet either. And I think it's because the people that get to go ahead and work together every year to do this award show, some years have been different than others, but they have found a way to continue to keep this show relevant. It still gets something. They don't get the kind of ratings that they used to, but I mean, they get generally about 4 million viewers on average. They don't get a complete erosion like they did, but I think the one thing that didn't help them, if I'm right, last year, they ran it not on Sunday nights. If I'm right, I'm just trying to remember what they did last year, but when I look at what they did previously, I remember last year, I don't think they even ran it on a Sunday. They ran it on a different night. And I'm just trying to remember what it was. The plan was to run it on a Tuesday, September 10th, but the event was pushed back because of a presidential debate. It was pushed back by a day. So they ran it on a Monday night. Crazy. And it would be MTV as the main channel that would go ahead and carry the show. But then what happened this time around is a few things are different. Number one, Paramount Global, the corporate parent of MTV, they announced before the Skydance merger that CBS would carry the event for the first time. Network television, along with all the other channels. But CBS would be the main carrier of it. And of course, Paramount would have a pre-show before the CBS show airs it live. And it'll be on Paramount Plus and all other places. But it's a great thing. And actually, the truth is, what they have done this year is they also got a really good list of stars that are going to be appearing. This is not a Taylor Swift-led show this time around. Last year, there was a lot to be said about Taylor Swift, where she won a lot of awards for herself. Video of the Year, Artist of the Year, broke the record for the most awards won overall. 30 wins since 2009. And she won for Video of the Year Fortnite, which extended her record for most wins and most consecutive wins, in the category. 5 wins, 3 years respectively. Anyway. So this year, we'll have an hour-long pre-show. They're getting pretty smart on who to bring on, who are pretty viral and very important to bring on for the particular setup for this show. I saw that Cat's Eye is going to be performing pre-show. Nominees include Sabrina Carpenter, Bad Bunny, and Morgan Wallen. Lady Gaga leads with 12 nominations. And there's also a spotlight on new nominees like Rosé, one of the members of Blackpink, who became the first Korean artist to be nominated for Video of the Year, along with Sabrina Carpenter, Jenny, Jimin, and Jisoo, all so far this year that are going to be scheduled for that. And as for this year's event, performing live at the MTV Video Music Awards, because it's on CBS, they're putting a bigger crowd out. And the CBS also runs the Grammy Awards. They air that show every February. They want to make this a big deal because for television, network TV, they realize live events are what's going to carry the bulk of programming. Because right now with Skydance taking over CBS, they want to make live sports and live events become more important and kind of start weaning off more of the scripted programming they've already been taking off. Because they realize if you have events that are going on regularly throughout the network year, people are going to go to watch the live events on network TV. People will go for that. So for football and for various things that are going on before or after an event, they'll also watch network television. It's still a place where people will go to watch because it's there, it's accessible, it's free. Mariah Carey, Lady Gaga, Tate McRae, Alex Warren, and Sabrina Carpenter will all be performing. That's already scheduled to perform so far. That's a big, good lineup. Legends right there, and then Tate McRae, who's been touring all this year and had a great, pretty remarkable album this year, also was on the F1 soundtrack. Alex Warren putting out his album earlier this year. Sabrina Carpenter having a big monster year for her last year with Short and Sweet, and now putting out Man's Best Friend. That's leading out here, so obviously for her, it's a big deal to promote for that. It's being held on Sunday. And the women behind the song Golden, which is the current #1 single right now on the Hot 100, will present on the show as well. The women behind Huntrix, the fictional trio, they will be appearing at the MTV VMAs. And for Mariah Carey, she will be performing and she'll be receiving this year's Video Vanguard Award for her, and will be performing a career-spanning medley of her hits. She still performs great. And she has a new album on the works, working out. And she's already gotten a couple of singles that she's already put out leading up to the album release. And they're definitely going for somebody that's a pretty renowned and universally accepted for a host of this year, LL Cool J, who's already within the CBS umbrella, working with NCIS as he has, or yeah, NCIS New Orleans. No, LA, that's right. No, yeah, it was a CSI or SIS. I forget. I think it's NCIS LA. That's what I think it is. But LL Cool J is going to be there at the show. And show will be from the UBS Arena, New York and Long Island. First on CBS, simulcast on MTV, and also streaming on Paramount Plus. So I don't know if it's going to be airing on the other channels or not. Don't know yet. There'll be a 1-hour pre-show. We already said that Cat's Eye will be performing their latest singles, Gnarly and Gabriella, on the pre-show. The pre-show will be live on all the Paramount-related networks. And the VMAs will have their extended play stage, where they always put some spotlight on various artists there. And among those they'll be having is Bailey Zimmerman featuring with the Kid Leroy, with a new song he's going to be featuring there. Lola Young will be performing her smash hit Messy on that extended play stage. That's great for her. And Megan Moroney will also be performing her track 6 months later. We also know that a couple other areas of genres, Busta Rhymes will be getting the MTV VMA Rock the Bells Visionary Award. Ricky Martin is going to be coming back, and I believe he's going to be performing as well. He'll be receiving the inaugural Latin Icon Award. Big deal on that. And Gaga will be performing for the first time in the VMA since 2020, when she took home multiple trophies. Right now, Lady Gaga leads the pack with 12 nominations, followed closely by her fellow collaborator for Die With A Smile, Bruno Mars, with 11. Kendrick Lamar is there with 10 nominations. Sabrina Carpenter with 9. Rose, 8. Ariana Grande on The Weeknd, 7. Billie Eilish and Tate McRae, 6 each. Charlie XCX, 5. Alex Warren, Bad Bunny, Doja, Ed Sheeran, Jelly Roll, Miley Cyrus, Morgan Wallen, all each have 4 nominations. And the messaging and marketing of this is trying to be made a big deal. So for TV ads leading up to the show, they've been marketing it as music's most surprising night. They don't want to call it music's biggest night like the Grammys, but they're saying it's music's most iconic night. Also know that Kona Gray, Doja Cat, Balvin with DJ Snake, Jelly Roll are also supposed to perform. Post Malone and Somber is supposed to be performing as well. He has a forthcoming album as well, or his album just came out as well, so good for him. That's kind of covering the ground of who they have. And you know what? For a year of music stagnation, MTV's kind of got their finger on the pulse of who to bring and who they were able to bring for this VMA show. So people have been trying to magnify and really dig deep into the idea if MTV and the Video Music Awards were still relevant. And Cannonball, the podcast from the New York Times, actually took some time to talk about this and the point of the music videos and the music industry in general. So, shows hosted by Wesley Morris and Neela Orr. And Neela Orr starts off in here in this transcript we're going to take from the podcast he recently put out about if the VMAs are still relevant. And Neela says, I think there are some people who still are making some great videos. There are still people who are really visually minded, have great aesthetic impulses, and really care about the medium of the music video. Those people still exist. And there's some great music videos that still come out. But I think the state of the music video is greatly diminished. Some of the biggest artists of our time don't even make music videos anymore. They mentioned Beyonce when it came to her Cowboy Carter album, or for Renaissance. You just get visualizations and looping. And the moments are like of the art is just doing something that just gets looped and looped and looped. It feels like we're losing the art form of the music video to social media. People are on their phones, so I think it's that. And also that you have to make reels or TikToks or very bite-sized visual accompaniments for their projects. And I think it's part of the problem. And then Wesley Morris goes on to talk about the industrial concern. Because the thing that has kept music videos from being taken seriously from the outset was, we didn't use this word back then, but they were treated like content. And they were essentially a commercial for this long-form music format called the album. And each video essentially bankrolled by the record company to promote an album, to sell songs, but also sell albums. And I think that's what happened essentially, is that MTV wasn't paying to run these videos. it was always MTV, please play our video, break our artists, sell us millions of albums, please. In the streaming era, music labels don't need that. They don't need MTV anymore. MTV, in theory, if they really wanted to stay in business, they'd be paying the labels themselves. Like, it's not just in an artist's interest to now just throw the music video on MTV, where Paramount, Viacom, sorry, Skydance. But the thing is that MTV could still be relevant in that case. I still think so. I mean, the thing is, the music labels are the ones that are kind of holding themselves back. They're more worried about trying to make the money on catalogs for previous music and whatever they want to do with that. But for new music, they're not trying to take the time to go ahead and invest in talent or build them up. But they could be using radio and MTV to go ahead and build and develop talent. It's obvious that you can still go ahead and try to develop talent and make them into something. I mean, look, Cat's Eye is a great example. From an artist that came out, they had songs like Debut and Touch they put out initially last year. And then this year, they come out with an extended play, an EP, and it's catching some ground, and they've gotten themselves in some viral campaigns that are getting themselves more noticed. And right now, it's a chance for them to try to peak. So for them, you had the song Gnarly and Gabrielle that both took off on the EP. And for them, what really helped out was that they got to be part of the Gap Jeans campaign right now, which is viral as we speak. So what a better time to go and have Cat's Eye now perform at the pre-show for MTV, and it's going to get plastered all over the place virally. And that's the thing that'll help well, is that, I mean, here's the thing, like I'll say it like this too. I remember the last real memorable and amazing MTV Video Music Award show was the one in COVID in 2020. Because I remember when they didn't have an audience, but they just created this whole setup. Like, it was amazing how they went ahead and did it. It's like they were basically doing music videos on location live. So, of course, they couldn't have everybody on stage together, but the personal performances, it didn't feel wrong without the audience. Actually, it turned out really good. I was amazed on how well that went. And that was something I thought that you could take some of that cinematic value and bring that back in, that stagecraft. But the stagecraft hasn't been much of that anywhere anyways. Like, even the artists we have right now, I don't know how much accoutrement they're going to have, like how much of a choreography are they going to have, or how much of a backdrop are they going to have to perform. Because you look at those artists, these are not people that are like super out there and wild. Like, I mean, Lady Gaga will obviously put a big performance out there for herself. And Doja Cat will probably do the same. But like the real artists that are going to go out there and really present themselves in something wild and crazy, those are the two. Otherwise, everybody else, I think they're going to just keep it within a normal setup. I mean, Tate McRae will obviously have a big choreography with her show. And Sabrina Carpenter will do something special with her, because there's always going to be like some kind of setup for the visuals to go along with her work on the video. Like last year, didn't she kiss a moon man or something like that? I forget what she did. But either which way, there hasn't been much that's been very memorable. But to see all these artists perform live and get out here, especially the ones that you know that are right now in the lexicon of music today. And we're not just talking about radio. We're talking about streaming. Because all these artists that you're taking right now, we're not taking artists here that are just radio friendly and then just coming in here. I mean, when you're looking at the current setup of music right now, Cat's Eye, Somber, Tate McRae, Sabrina Carpenter, Lola Young for that case as well. And you could put Doja Cat, you could put Jelly Roll in there. You could definitely say that they have been, and Alex Warren, they have all been very prominent in streaming all this year. Big, big thing. There isn't much else in the setup that you could have. Like, I mean, I don't know what other artists you could bring on board that would make a bigger difference, or that be much more of an impact right now of who they have. Because the other thing too is that there is no BET Awards. So like some of those artists could have been put over there, but they're not. Probably better off, because we haven't been enjoying much of the BET Awards. At least I haven't really enjoyed it too much. It's too much of the fanfare and too much of, it's not even about the music so much anymore. Like some of it's okay. I've caught clips here and there, but I never would sit down and watch the BET Awards. Not in a long time anyway. But one thing that was being said about the Cannonball podcast from New York Times, when they talked about the Video Music Awards and literally taking the video music of music videos literally into this, it's not been about the music videos themselves. Let's just make that clear. Music videos have not been important in the VMAs. It's an award show for music, period. But now, they go on to say here, and this is from Wesley Morris, he says that, we're not really concerned with the video. We experience it, but only for the song. The video is like a vestige of a period in which it was once a primal source of artistic imagination and commercial viability. So we have this award show. For the first time, going to be on CBS. But they also talk about the fact that a CBS broadcast award show cannot live on videos alone. So now they have Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and other non-video oriented categories. So they're going to do things just like the Grammys would do, which, by the way, Grammys are on CBS. They're Grammifying the VMAs. And I understand why they're doing that. Why keep some of the structure of what MTV was when you would think that originally what the MTV format was based on the music videos themselves and how they would be evaluated. But we don't have that right now. It's just on music in general. If they happen to have a music video, great. If they don't, it doesn't matter. For the most part, most of these artists, I think all of them still do put out music videos anyway, regardless. And there's efforts into those anyway. And I went ahead and got into some of the things that were being brought up in terms of what the VMAs mean. I still think they are a unique and increasingly vital cultural event. And I think what they're doing right now in terms of having the CBS broadcast and changing the award setup to have other categories to make this more of a music intensive show with the MTV brand front and center makes this a better show. MTV still is trying to create an effort, a deliberate effort to be a singular meeting point for a diverse array of genres. Because I know there's other genres they always put in here as well, so they always like to go into Latin. And I'm sure they're going to probably look into areas like K-pop or Afrobeats or reggaeton. Like just those areas are going to be evaluated as well. Somewhere in the mix, you're going to see some of these different categories being brought up. So the VMAs have been a bellwether for what's next in pop culture. There's not really a next in pop culture. What it is right now is what we have is who is the here and now of music. And I can tell that what they're also doing is they're not even focusing so much on the past. They are a little bit, but they're like the artists they're going to bring on board. They're going to perform, like whether it's Ricky Martin or Mariah Carey or Lady Gaga or Busta Rhymes. I think there's something there about who they're going to bring on that they're going to not delve too much into the old. They're going to just deal more into the now. There's enough in the here and now to cover. So they should be the bellwether to say, hey, if MTV's recognizing you, that means you've made it. You're in the mainstream right now. And so the VMAs are responding to the challenge of being that bellwether, looking at streaming services and social media, because there's a fractioning that's been going on for years of music. Ever since MTV decided not to play music videos anymore. Like this. And then, of course, Napster. That ultimately changed the game. Because we've had a fractioning of music for a lot of different reasons. Number one would be radio deregulation in the 90s. That didn't help. And then when music sales took a dive, physical music sales took a dive for Napster, that changed everything too. Because right now, so many independent artists out there that are not going to be represented here. That's okay. But at least you're going to get some artists here that they resonate well with the grassroots following and they're mainstream. And they don't feel like they're all industry plants, which is the other part that's very important. I think the choice of the artists they bring on board, plus also incorporating country into the mix as well. That works. And I like where they're going with that. I like to have one which is a full hodgepodge of all of it. Now, the inclusions for best pop artists and best country artists is acknowledging the industry's evolving landscape. The ceremony they're going to have looks like the night where a K-pop act can share the same stage and audience with a rock band or a reggaeton star, with a cultural conversation that can be made that doesn't happen on an algorithmically-driven platform. My point is that while YouTube is the haven for music videos now, it's still important because Facebook tried to go ahead and experiment into music videos. I know Spotify's trying to do that as well, to try to get into the music videos as well. And I hope they do someday because that will really help. Because then anything that will encourage music videos to be made is important. And where they can be seen is important. But MTV's played the gatekeeper. They at least when they remark and say, okay, this artist is going to be on the VMAs, or this person is going to perform, or this person is going to get an award, that's something that'd be important. Because I think even the awards, that's secondary compared to who is able to be seen performing, being there, appearing, or giving out an award, whoever's presenting, all those things. I think the fact of who appears on that program is extremely important, because then you realize who is there. And the other part I always got to think about too is that if MTV is able to get themselves on such a presence right now with the CBS broadcast, that it will do the one thing that streaming services will pay attention to, and for the music industry itself. Because what CBS is trying to do here, what Paramount's trying to do with this show, is if the VMAs do what it's supposed to do, all these artists that appear should get a bump. There's no Grammy bump anymore for music out there, because there's only certain things that are out there that will create a bump for an artist. When it's something viral that goes up on social media, that's one. If it's the Super Bowl, that's two. Other than that, what else is there that creates a bump? The VMAs used to do that. And now they're a chance to try to go and build a bigger audience to make it where even if they're not going to catch it so much on the broadcast themselves, but if they do a good job on social media to go and put that word out there and they market it and they send out clips all over the place. I mean, one of the things they're doing right now in terms of the fan base, you have a lot of artists that are in the mix that are going to be performing. They're going to have their fans all over the place that are going to be like cult-like. They will go ahead and try to promote the best they can for all their artists. So Cat's Eye will get a big following. Sabrina's got a big following. Take McCrae's got a big following. You know, Blackpink and Rosé and all those also have a big following. Just think about like that. You're going to have that kind of push that you would hope from all these armies of fans. They're going to be pushing their individual artists and trying to get them off the ground. And the fact that we'll have this footage of MTV doing their performance, a live performance at that, which normally you don't get a chance to go and see much of unless you see them in concert. This is a good chance to go and see it. And if it's done and choreographed and if it's shot done right and you get to go and see it, like, it makes a difference. It will make MTV relevant in that case. And I think people need to go and see some of that more. Countless viral clips, online personalities. And I think the other thing too is that to get away from some of the online personalities they've been having on and some of the things they've been doing in terms of what the structure of the reward shows have been, I'll tell you like this too. I think they've also tapped a little too much into the cultural zeitgeist of trying to be diverse, DEI, be, diverse, equitable, and inclusive. I think you can tell even by this award show, they know that the culture's changed. That there's been a shift to something much more conventional than we've had before. And from what they're doing with this award show, it feels like that's what's going to happen. To where we get it to where it's somewhere in a place where a bigger audience is going to catch on and watch. I don't want to make this political. I just think that there is a cultural shift that we've had, and it's been obvious this year. Just look at the jeans campaigns, okay? There's a cultural shift going on. And who's going to be performing live? It'll be a bigger story. Of course, what might happen is that we might have certain artists that will have some political view. They might try to use the platform for political statements. That could probably happen. That's okay. Whatever. The other thing I've also noticed too is that how many times do you see live performances where it's just solo artists? So of course they need accompaniment, or they need accoutrement, right? They need backup dancers, they need other things going on in the background to help for that performance. And of course, going back to veteran artists that are going to be part of this, a taste of the show's past glory. With some of the artists are going to bring on board of the veterans, they're going to be standout, and people will know the songs. It'll be loved. It'll be really wonderful to go and see that. There's iconic instances that MTV's show has done, and I think that's one of those things that social media could totally go for. There are no viral moments, but in the times of MTV's Video Music Awards in their history, they've done that. In the first VMA, Like a Virgin, Madonna rolling around on the floor in a wedding dress, all in white, virgin white. Provocative, theatrical, unforgettable. Everybody remembers that always. Nirvana performing Lithium. Explosive, amp trashing, looking like the Who out there. That was, again, the change of the glam rock, of the hair bands, showing, hey, rock has changed. We're in an alternative sense. The rise of alternative music was there. The triple kiss, Britney, Madonna, Christina, 2003. Again, three of the biggest names in pop all together. Taylor Swift being interrupted by Kanye West. I'm going to let you finish moment. Beyonce showing she was pregnant with her with her daughter and performing Love on Top. And you see that. And that's those things that come across. So it's fragmentation. The music industry is completely fragmented. So it's very rare for something to go and rise to the cream of the crop to the rise to the top. It's just not happening right now. TikTok and Spotify have democratized music discovery, and it's great. That's the one thing I will say. I enjoy the fact that TikTok and YouTube and Spotify, we get to see lots of music of various genres, various stars, various everything. It's an open platform. Everybody can put their content up there. Okay? So music discovery, there's lots of music discovery. But we need to have a room where there used to be that kind of, it's almost like the idea of like the small concert halls, the small clubs. And certain artists would get to perform and they would work their way up. And this is the same kind of, we're getting that virtual sense right now with Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. But there was always the point where, okay, in order for you to take that next step to become mainstream, to become famous, you need to have that extra step. You need to find out where is your end goal. For some of these artists, they don't know what the end goal is. I mean, what is it? I mean, to go ahead and get yourself to be important so that you could be on tour, making, playing for millions of fans every year and putting out albums and selling them out. It's so hard to do that now in the days of Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube, and this fragmented, democratized music discovery environment, which is why radio and MTV, they can still make themselves relevant today to take care of this problem, to be the solution for this problem. But the music industry, I have said it over and over, they need to come back and play ball with them. Just because the folks on Cannonball and New York Times said, well, music needs to be paid for, fine, get them on royalties. Find another pipeline for royalties through them. But until then, you need them. You need MTV, you need radio, just like MTV and radio need music. And I'm just saying MTV doesn't have to necessarily be in the same realm as it was with a cable channel. It doesn't have to be, that's fine. But that brand could be the visual marketing arm, the social arm, all of it. Because MTV could still be the social arm if they would put the resources behind it and make it important. And put music videos on there. And find other places where they can go ahead and put some long-form content out that people will go ahead and catch on to it. And listen, to the credit, MTV's done that. They got Pluto TV, they got their platforms over there. They have the cable channels. I don't know how much of an online presence they have for that kind of content, but the one thing is that they've been continuing to downsize. They don't have the MTV News department anymore. They got rid of that altogether. But the E! News also went away too. That's okay. I understand that part. But it doesn't mean that you can't do something where in the social media environment, it doesn't mean that there's certain artists that they might have in their own zeitgeist that they should try to create artists out of nowhere that people should be paying attention to. They should just say, okay, these are artists that are making themselves headway in streaming and other places. And these are the people you need to put in front. Because MTV was important and was recognizable for certain artists. They said, these are people that are spanking new. You need to pay attention to them. They're breaking out. So MTV could be the place for them to break out themselves. It can still be done. I really do believe that. All right, there's a few other topics I want to get into outside of the normal realm of things. SiriusXM and Howard Stern did not return to address a potential new contract for him on his setup. We don't know why Howard Stern did not return back to a SiriusXM show. But he had promised to go and tell people all next Monday, they say now. But it's a week delay. Amid fresh speculation about Howard Stern's future, SiriusXM President and Chief Content Officer spoke of the Bank of America's media conference and did not hedge on the host's value on Wednesday. And here's what he said. that Howard, quote, for all these years and right up until now is as important to content, a single piece of content, as we've had. He's the best interviewer out there, period, bar none, end quote. And I said that a few weeks ago, that if he were to do anything going forward, he's an interviewer. He's no longer a morning show host. He doesn't fit that role anymore. 71 years old, no, it's done. Now, as we know, Stern's normal acceptance since 2006 is normally getting a 5-year, $500 million pack with the company. We've done it several times. And for those years since 2006, his multi-$100 million deal has been long justified as a driver to subscriber retention and brand identity. But now people question how much longer this platform can sustain costs, speculation, and the eventual exit could be a recurring storyline. Greenstein told investors, quote, "We'd love to see him stay. It certainly has to make sense, but we feel pretty good that we've done this before. We'll see where it goes." Now, there have been reports saying that he's gotten a monster payday, but there's been nothing confirmed. The CEO, Jennifer Witt, says that, quote, "He's been core to our platform for 20 years, over 20 years, and I'm confident we'll get to the right place." And when they look at what they will do about Stern and evaluating how much they can offer him, Greenstein says that the team is asking what a personality means to the service and to specific audience segments. And an example right now is Stephen A. Smith is someone as an example of a deliberate bet on talent after the company signed him to a deal in June. And they also were asked about their work in podcasting, and that podcasting is a way that SiriusXM is increasingly leveraging its reach as well as its relationships with talent. And executives told investors they're approaching podcast acquisitions and renewals with a heavy focus on data and predictable returns. Greenstein talked about the fact that video has become a major player in YouTube, obviously in podcasting. Over time, we have to figure out what we're going to do there. And I'll tell you, when it comes to podcasting, I was actually going through that with some of the content I do on a regular basis, not for my channel, but for other things. And, it's a hit or miss if you decide to do video for podcasting. People want to do it anyway. I think if you do it in the short form and then you decide to go ahead and take important content or very high profile content and make sure you put it out on video, that's one thing to get out there. But for the most part, unless you're recognizable or you think that you're going to really do something out there that's going to be significant that warrants a video podcast, I don't think video is important. I don't think it's a priority. I think it's if you can do it and you can put it together and you can edit it and you can produce it, great. But you got to have something more than two talking heads on the screen. It's got to be more than that. And it can't just be the set. It's got to be something more. But that's very tough for some people. And as for SiriusXM, they said their revenue trends and cost cutting has allowed them to raise their free cash flow guidance. And Jennifer West told the investor conference they're reiterating revenue guidance at approximately $8.5 billion for the year and earnings of approximately $2.6 billion. And they feel good about those numbers. Now, another story I want to talk about that I've been hammering on for a couple of weeks is the broadcast ownership rules. As we know, the FCC is looking to reevaluate broadcast ownership, which means they could very well make a point to let broadcast ownership be whatever. Because right now, a lot of media companies are saying, well, the internet is our competition now, not amongst ourselves. So they want to find a way to say, okay, let us be able to buy whatever newspaper, magazine, radio station, TV station that we want. And there's no limit to it. That's what they want. And of course, the lobbying arm that's importantly trying to go ahead and hedge that effort and trying to lobby that to the finish line is the National Association of Broadcasters. So the NAB is putting out facts of how their campaign right now to update decades-old ownership rules is reaching significant traction, both on air and in Washington. So since April, they had an initiative that started with nearly 250,000 radio and TV spots across 192 markets, equating to more than $443 million in airtime and over 1 billion impressions. And the NAB says that push has led to more than 174,000 emails, 34,000 tweets directed at members of Congress and FCC commissioners, and a grassroots support for reform. And a new round of creative spotlights the risk through free live sports if the rules are not modernized. And Curtis Legate, the CEO and president of NAB, says that outdated rules are shackling stations from growing and innovating at a time when big tech operates with limited scale and zero public interest obligations. Curtis Legate said also the FCC needs to act quickly, saying modernized ownership policies are necessary for broadcasters to continue investing in journalism, emergency coverage, and sports programming. So they're making their effort. Nobody else is stopping them from doing it. The music industry is not helping out at all to push back on the fact that, the NAB has been controlling a lot of things when it comes to the control of royalties and money that's being made by radio stations at the detriment of record companies and the artists and the songwriters and publishers themselves. We already talked about, what was it, 2 weeks ago, about the change of the royalties that are coming up. There's some significant increases, but really not that much. Nothing like that there is right now. If they were able to build the Congress to make it where actual royalties are being paid out based on the size of stations, and to get that pushed across too. But the NEB's been a big monolith that's able to go ahead and control the environment, keep it from a lot of people getting involved. Last story I had right here was from Radio Insight. They put a story out about streaming versus research. So what radio is doing to try to go ahead and determine what songs on the country dials are determined to be songs that people should be playing. Because it's one of the last places, I think, where it comes to country as a genre, where they're not so antiquated. And I know probably people will go ahead and give me shit about saying that, but like Music Row Nashville, yeah, of course they have their artists they want to go and push out there and what they want to do with it. But I think something needs to be said about the fact that country streaming is important to the detriment of any songs going on the radio. That, there's a little more enterprising efforts being done by country stations to pay attention to what streaming is doing right now for artists, along with the research of the hits and what needs to be a hit. So Sean Ross put a story about this. He talked to the vice president of programming at iHeartRadio Minneapolis about the discussion between the influence of streaming versus call out at country radio. It was one of the panels at the country music seminar or the country radio seminar back in February. And the point is that if streaming versus call out is an existential question, it's worth noting that country's existence is the most comfortable of the current base formats in terms of ratings and the radio label relationship. Right. Labels and radio stations actually work together. Except for that little caveat where you had radio stations that were forcing the artist to play free shows that radio can make money off of. Those little concert things. That's a thing that's a little bit of the pill that should not be allowed. And I remember that was still being looked at. I don't know if that's still gotten any farther yet, but we're going to keep an eye on it. And that's a contrast to pop formats where pure radio records are in short supply, but where both product flow and the label relationship are disintegrating quickly. But slow-building call-out driven hits are remnant of the pre-Morgan Wallen country format, where passive records even dominated the chart. But now label reps who remain committed would like to see the process expedited. They think there's a happy medium between 13 weeks for superstar releases and 50 weeks. But ideally, they want to get to 30 weeks where an artist that might be brand new, and if a song goes and gets through streaming and does very well, then eventually radio is going to pick up on it and make it popular. And give it that extra push to be a really top song in the genre. So they talked to the operations manager at KYGO in Denver, a major market country station. Been very successful being informed by streaming. Brian Mitchell says that country, quote, needs more active records than ever because of the infinite choices in entertainment. We need to drive passion and the desire to engage with our brands. Passive just aids in being forgotten. Doesn't mean that some of those passive songs don't develop into real hits for the audience, but there has to be a modicum of give a care. That doesn't mean play everything that is new or everything that streams either. Brand expectations should be considered. It's amazing because I know my brother listens to Sirius's Highway 16, or at least he did when he had Sirius, until they keep, pushing the price up for subscriptions up too much, which, no surprise there. But they do a really good job on that channel of identifying songs that are doing well on streaming versus the radio hits. And even some of the songs they think that should be putting out there themselves being a tastemaker or a trendsetter, which is good too. So they go into some of the things about some of the songs that have gotten out there that have become mainstream crossover hits. Shabuzi's Good News, the follow-up single to a bar song, Tipsy. It's cracking Spotify's top 200 now in July. And a researcher, Matt Bailey, says that was driven by airplay. That at the time, Good News was strong in research, and not just country, but at certain CHR stations. And the telling the differences between country and CHR is that the song is taking ads for Push Week at Country as it closes on number 1, but moved on from top 40 after it peaked at number 5. So country at least wants to try to go ahead and move ahead of the pack and at least make it where radio's not going to be that far behind to streaming when it comes to songs becoming popular and making, crowning an artist that is performing very well on streaming and making them the big hit overnight and giving them that extra boost they need from radio to get themselves at the very top of the country charts and maybe very well on the mainstream charts, because we see how the Billboard Hot 100 has a lot of country songs on there more than ever, and it's any given time. I think it's a big deal to go and pay attention to that as well. But anyway, I'm looking forward to the VMAs this weekend. I can't wait to see what they have. And, I actually like the lineup of artists they have this year. They are missing rock artists. That's one thing they don't have much of. But again, they can't play any of the older artists. There's not anybody out there that's really relevant to put out there. Maybe Linkin Park, but that's already gone and passed. Who else is there? I'd love to know what you think. And I hope you get a chance to watch. Let me know what you think about it. We'll talk about it next week on another Broadcasters Podcast. Content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.